Welcome, good afternoon. First of all, I would like to check that everyone can hear properly. You've got a hand. Can you raise your hand? Let us know, if connection is right. If not, you can use the questions, tag in order to let us know any kind of problem that you got. Right. Before starting, I really would like to welcome all of you to this webinar. I think the webinar will help us, to see, everything, what your opinion, to get, feedback, and also to see, what to be improved, Well, I think it's time to start. Everyone can see, the PPT, the PowerPoint presentation, right? Is it okay? Okay, let me move this a little bit. Perfect. Right. The title of the webinar is let's say defining, what the project is. It's a CLIL project. We will define, why we do consider, that this is a CLIL project. And now we are saying it's possible. It doesn't mean that in the past it wasn't possible, but we were working for along, 2 years in creating, all the resources needed in order to improve, projects in through CLIL in bilingual schools, right? The University of Dayton was helping us, a lot in order to collect research, and that's why we are very proud of showing you the new project. Our new project is called Más Sabia. Let's see if I can, right. Can you see Más Sabia? Más Sabia is the next project this project in which we are working hard. It's a project in which is, first of all, an evolution of Sabia, but also, is a project in which, we started like using our empathy, as teachers, trying to figure out, what are the most common, problems that our bilingual teacher face, and try to sort them out, right? So one of the biggest problems or the biggest issues that we found, when we were visiting schools, bilingual schools, is that bilingual education English subject is a subject which is, being not well treated as English as a foreign language in an ordinary school is one subject, but once you are teaching other subjects in English, the perspective of this subject is different, right? If we take a look at most of bilingual schools, most of them are working with ELT material, English language teaching materials, which means, we are using materials that are made for about 120, 130, schools in countries. So it is not well contextualized to the situation that every single student has in its school context or social context. And then, also, this material is used, but it's totally isolated from what is taught in other subjects. So the learning context, which is, what CLIL is preserving all the time, is totally isolated. So instead of having, everything well connected, what we got is a part of information for natural science, another part of information for English subject. So there is a jigsaw there, and they don't fit each other, right? And then something that from our point of view, and for most of the autonomous communities and countries out in Europe, is that this is adapted to the number of sessions that the class that the school has, in English, whereas it's supposed to be, a focus on the linguistic level of the students. For example, in the community of Madrid, there is an exam by the end of the primary education stage that the students has to go through, and it's a B1 level, this PET level, right? This is, let's say, setting the goal, the linguistic goal of a bilingual, project, right? For that reason, we do consider English should be treated in a different way for plurilingual schools. And that's why, instead of working with ELT, we came out with a new, idea, a new concept called English for plurilingual schools. English cannot be anymore separated, from the rest of the subjects. That's why we want to make, a puzzle in between all the learning content. So instead of having an isolated part of information for English and another one totally isolated for natural science, we are going to link all of them together, creating a longer, let's say in a bigger, learning context. With this, what we are doing is, first of all, improving the amount of exposure to the language per week. Imagine that, for example, in the community in Madrid, English have 5 hours, and in natural science, we got 2.5, 3. Let's say 3, right? If we start working with the integration of these two subjects, what we got by the end is 8 hours instead of, 5 hours here and 2 or 3 hours, totally separated. So students are listening to this several times. Not only that, our proposal is that if every single of the subjects in plurilingual schools can be supporting and helping, the context, the learning context, students will be able to give us more. And this is because it is based on the theory of the iceberg. It usually happens in infant education, right? We're working with kids, and sometimes we get, desperate, and we consider that probably we should jump into Spanish in order to teach them, the contents, because you don't see any response from them, But this is because you're working under the water. So as much input as you give to students, as bigger, output the students will be able to give. So this is what we are doing, with this new integration. And this is the only way to say this is CLIL. And this is CLIL, and CLIL has been used in many publishing companies as a beautiful logo on every single cover. But CLIL only works if content and language are integrated. So the way to integrate it is by using same learning context. So let me give you an example. So if, for example, I'm working in natural science with animals, and in English I'm working with comparison, contrasting, or present simple, now everything is connected, because instead of using, these new grammar structures with other topics, like for example means and transport, now I'm linking it, and I'm gonna do all these comparisons, all these contrastings, all these use of the present simple through animals. So students receive a lot of support through the learning context. How we started working on this project, this huge project, is like, especially when bilingual schools finish the primary education stage, they realize that there are things to be improved. And one of the biggest things, or the easiest things, to be changed is in infant education. In 2015, one of the first research that the European Commission, as well as Cambridge English, gave us is that the sooner the learning of an additional language starts, the better results we will have, later. So now what we are facing is students in infant education working with numbers, colors, and shapes, and by the sudden in first grade, they face vertebrates and invertebrates. So there is like a huge crash. We got to stop that crash and help them, to achieve that goals, especially linguistic goals. And how do we do it? We do it, by working in a new project called Leo and Liam, right? Leo and Liam, and the mascot, which is, as you can see, this dragon that is growing. Look at, for example, the teeth. The first level one has one teeth, one tooth, then it's growing, into one teeth and two tooth, three tooth, right? The idea is that students are seeing, how it grows. The mascot is growing with them, as well as the characters, and is not focused on, let's say, increasing the number of contents that we are teaching, but using new linguistic strategies that will help them, to face, vertebrates and invertebrates in first grade without any problem, right? How do we do it? First thing, we use, like in this case, some books. One of the books is the one that you are seeing, very attractive, because we want students to get engaged with it. And at the back side of every single page in the pupils book, we gave, this type of quick view. We know, because we were visiting a lot of the schools, the necessity of going from one place to another. Sometimes you are the teacher of English in primary education, and you have to go downstairs to infant education, or you are, the unique teacher in infant education, that you're going to move from one grade to another grade. But there is a lack of time from your side. So the idea is that we are going to help you, giving you know, like a quick view, so you will be able to see, you know, promptly what students need to do that day. If there is any necessity of for example, of any other resources, we mark them not only with the icon, but also we can give you, you know, the information below. Something to be highlighted is what you've got at the right bottom, you know, corner, which is enjoy sessions 2 and 3, and it says off book. For us, this makes a huge difference between this project and other projects that are outside. This project is following, you know, the CLIL outline. CLIL outline is a way to make sure students are going to learn in an appropriate way, not only the language, but the content. What we did, you know, when we were thinking about infant education is that we had to get rid of all the, let's say, steps that are implementing, you know, especially reading and writing, and be 100% focused on oral communication. For those who wants to start, you know, with writing code sooner, we've got optional material from the third, you know, term of 4 years old onwards, so you can implement it. It's up to your teaching characteristics. You can use it or not. So as you can see, what I'm transmitting today is that this is a project in which you've got a huge amount of material. You get to choose what you want to use, right? For example, for year 5 or level 3, we've got 152 sessions. Doesn't mean that you've got 152 sessions, not at all. But I mean, you can choose among all of the ones that we are giving you, providing you with, to make your classroom in take, you know, the direction that you are marking. If we take a look at you know, what you've got in the screen, we've got that the session number 1 is on book, session number 2 and number 3 is off book, 4 and 5 is on book. So when the book is needed, we use the book. When the book is not needed, we don't use the book. This means, and we all as teachers know that, you know, no teacher can, you know, make sure that the students acquire everything by passing pages. There are lots of dynamic activities that you do out of the book that will make sure that will make, you know, print all this information, all this content in kids, you know, brain. So that's why we are promoting all the kind of activities, the activities that you already do in the school, that well sequence, so you can follow the sequence of it and get much more benefits. Most of the activities that you can see here are not new. We are not inventing the wheel. What we are doing is organizing all these different steps in order to be much more beneficial for our kids, right? Other part of the sessions can be the following one, and I want you to be focused on number 7, which is phonics. For the first time, what we are doing is including, you know, the phonics, you know, system into the whole project. For a long time, you know, phonics were totally separated from any infancy education project. That phonics cannot be, if we were talking about natural science and English subject as isolated parts, if we assume that phonics is an isolated part, we are not integrating. So phonics are integrated in this project. How? Not only by getting connections with the vocabulary, but also bearing in mind what kids, the kids we've got, right? And the kids we've got are kids with our Spaniards, right? So if they are Spaniards, this means, you know, that the organization of phonics should be in a different way. If you know, for example, in Jolly Phonics, the organization of the 7 sets of sounds are depending on the repetition of these sounds in the English language, right? This is good if you live in an English-spoken country, but as we don't live in an English-spoken country, we should bear in mind, or we should adapt, you know, all these sounds into the mother tongue of our students. So all these, and not only that, but also the primary education one that I'm going to show you, are also focused on this, on that most of our students are Spaniards. So I have to take advantage of the mother tongue. So students in level 1, year 3, will be studying, you know, sounds that are exactly the same as in Spanish. Then in level 2, they will see sounds that are similar to Spanish. And in level 3, they will see sounds that are from the English language. You know, there is no other option now, right? The idea is that through having fun, through integrating all the good, you know, teaching practices that are mentioned already here, students will get the most of this, So we are getting them, used to also the pace that they will face, in primary education. This doesn't mean that it's going to be more complicated for them. From my point of view, this is going to be much more easier for them to follow the classroom. And how do we do it too? By also bearing in mind that what is working in infancy education is the routine, the assembly. So all our materials, all the strength of every single session is focused on these, on the assembly routine. We want students to work to get information little by little. Because the research that we have collected is that if we work little by little through signed contents, the students will be able to get it. But if we make isolated sessions, it will be much difficult for the students, for pupils in this case, to remember the contents, right? This is a way, a sample of what we got, in the teacher's book. As you can see, again, Phonics has, this greenish square box, right? This greenish box is in green color because what we want you is to choose if you want to use it or you don't want to use it. As I mentioned before, this is made up of options. You choose what you want to use, right? Then we've got, most of, well, let's say, 100% of the material is focused on stories, something that students really love, So animations, there will be animations with the characters and the beautiful illustration that you've seen. So we are getting close to what they see or they watch, on TV. So you've got online and offline, material. So if you go to online, you will have the opportunity to see the animations, and you will be able to stop little by little and see, how the language as well as the content is growing. This is a way to engage students to also, permit, the extension of education out of the school, so the students will be able to see, animations at home. So if they watch at home, all these animations, we are also communicating to parents, something that in bilingual education is a key of success. If everyone in the society knows, what is going on in the classroom, people will be much more sure of what is happening and the learning process of their kids. And there will be, we will be, let's say, killing myths, right? And this is, for example, the what you've got in the website. In the website, you will have, like unit number 0, which is the transition period between, coming back from holidays into the different terms. By the end of every single term, we are going to give you festivities with several, sessions. If you want to work on Halloween, a single session, you've got 5 sessions. Choose the best you want. If you want to work Halloween for the whole week, you've got sessions enough. That's the idea, to give you more than you can need, so you can select. This is, for example, what is for teachers, which is, in the digital corner, the presentation, review, and audios. You can choose what to do, and you can share them. For sharing, you need to create groups. My recommendation, as the platform is used to communicate with students and also, parents, as many groups as you create and as many assignments or interaction that you create, the better will be for students, right? And this is, what the students will have too. So they've got the sounds, they've got chants, they've got songs. We can, extend, education out of the classroom, which is, a way of also, increasing the number of hours that they are listening to English language. So facing the problem which we got right now, which is in between infancy education and primary education, there is a gap. With this material, we have created like a very well, let's say, or a careful, language scaffolding. So students will grow smoothly from the pre-A1 level till, the CAT-PET level, right? We also bear in mind, a big research that was done here, which is, not only, the gap in between infancy education and primary education, but there is also a big, gap in between 2nd grade and 3rd grade. So what we have done is that in these 2 cases, in between year 5 and 1st grade, and in between 2nd grade and 3rd grade, the first term of the upper grade, it's going to be blended. So they will be able to retake and boost, right? Also, we bear in mind, that there are also, let's say, some differences in between, kids, especially in 5th grade with girls and in 6th grade with boys, So the first term in 5th grade and the first term in 6th grade are adapted to make, the language scaffolding, allow students to get involved, to get into it and being able to give us more, right? So this is the end of primary education, right? Is there any question about infancy education? Is everything okay? You can use the questions, tag in order to make any questions, right? There is a question. Which one? Let's see which one it is. Let me show you and let's respond it. How are connected the phonics and the language contents using the vocabulary, the key vocabulary of the unit, right? So let me go back in the presentation and I will be able to show you, right? Let me show you, Teresa. Right, give me a second. Okay. As you can see, and I will allow you to see the upper part of this, you will be able to see, the sounds that are here, b, m, p, and also, the vocabulary that is linked here. Let me see if I'm able to move, so I can see. Right. Hold on a second. Right. And so the words, it's linking, the words with the sounds. Bounce the ball. So ball, the word ball is involved into the session. Depending on the year, depending on the unit, there is like a key vocabulary. So through the key vocabulary and also, the sounds that they are supposed to be working on, we are linking all that, right? I don't know if this is the response that you wanted to. If not, feel free to ask again, okay? I'm gonna go on, okay, through primary education. Primary education is of course a variation of what you have seen here in infancy education. Okay. Let's go through. If not, I can respond any question by the end. There is no problem. Okay, first, I would like to talk about the roots. Most of them have been, told before. The main root for us is to work on CLIL, understanding that CLIL is not teaching a subject in English, is integration of subjects, supporting all of them, the learning context. So CLIL works if English is connected. So that's why, as you can see down here, language and content must be connected. How do we do it? By extending the exposure to the language. I said that weekly you will have, instead of isolated hours in English and isolated subjects in natural science, they will be totally connected. But not only that, we are going to work through projects. If you are familiarized with project-based learning, this is starting to work through what a project-based learning is, which is the goal of the European Commission for 2020. Extending the idea that project-based learning can give more, can allow us to get the most from our students. And of course, they are working on something much more evolved of what project-based learning is, which is phenomenon-based learning. And if you want, I can post some of the, on the blog, right? I remind you, the blog that in which, we are working on posting some of this is CLIL for success, because CLIL is the way to success in bilingual education, right? So it's a project. What type of project are we working with? Is service learning projects. What is the difference between, any kind of project and service learning projects? The big difference is that we are not only promoting learning by doing, but we are promoting, to have a reflection of what you learn in society. Society can be your classroom, your classmates. It can be the grade in front of you. It can be going upgrading, to the older students or to the younger students. It can be going and showing anything, to teachers, to parents, to the whole society, or getting connections with some associations in order to improve, to make things happen. Because, we can be teaching, we can be saying fairy tales, but by the end, it's just information if you don't apply the information. So that's why we work with service learning. In American, it's much more called like community engagement, okay? And as you can see, as the latest route is increasing the exposure to the language and the content for a term. Let me show you how, right? These are all the materials that we had in the previous project, and of course what we wanted for this project is to have the opportunity to link it to English. So let me explain how the service learning project works, right? At the beginning of every single project in natural or social science, you're going to have a page like the one that you can see at the left. It's a page in which the comment set a situation, and then we've got a big question that can start a debate, not only to work on previous knowledge, but also to start reflecting about what I really would like to learn, right? There will be time to work on that, but this is a good moment to do it. All these big questions have not a single response. There is not a single response, and you won't find any of these answers in the teacher's book or anywhere. Because the key here is to create a situation and a strategy in which students can create their own conclusions, create their own perception of things, right? So, for example, one of the big questions that we were working on is it fair to have exotic pets as exotic animals as pets, right? Or, for example, who writes the history, right? It's like I want people to start thinking that teachers no more can go on teach facts. We have to review, reconceptualize everything that is told as a fact. So investigation is the only way to make our students change makers by the end. So what you will have this is the beginning of the project. Then you will have like several sections in which you will be able not only to apply the contents that you learn by a competential activity, but also you will be able to little by little do different activities. These activities are actions. These actions together make a big action. So by the end of the project, you will have a big action, which is going to be how I'm going to show what I learned and make the society concerned about what I learned. So in the example that I was giving, previously, which was, if it was fair to have an exotic animal as pet, we are going to make, like an awareness campaign in which, parents are going to work and are going to see, what is our opinion about having exotic animals as pets, right? So as we are going to work for the term, the idea is that we need students to be autonomous learners. And this means, we need students to know in what part of the process they are. This is working with the theory of Dora the Explorer. If you tell me which part of the chapter I am, I will be able to have expectations about the next step. And if there is an exam by the end, and I was involved in the learning path, I will be able to know when it is going to happen. There won't be any surprise. So this is, the page that you can see, at the screen. We are giving them information about how are they going to start, getting the content, acquiring the language, and how we are going to start. This is a very good moment to start, with questions like, what do you know about, and what do you want to know? If there is anything new that is not in the plan that our students want to learn, it has to be included in the plan. Once you play, with the curiosity of the students, you can get more, right? How we start all that? By, for example, videos. Videos can help us a lot in order to improve, any kind of previous knowledge activity. Let me show you one.
Vertebrates and invertebrates. The difference between a snake and a worm.
So what we're doing here, as you could see, there is no information at all. It's a set of images. I want you to tell me, what these images awake you, what you think about. Give me opinions, give me previous knowledge, give me whatever you want to start, debating in the classroom. And this can help us if we promote, like a big sessions of previous knowledge, we will be able to know better, what the starting point is for kids, right? Not only that, but also, we will be able to connect all the information to the next step, which is how the information is presented in Mass Savia. In Mass Savia, the information is presented through 3 steps. First step is let's get started. In this, like let's say, section, students will have like a question, which is in this case, what are the difference between a worm and snake, and start comparing. Do they have, the whole information to respond or to answer this question? Not at all. The idea is to start to make, questions that make them think, investigate, right? How are we gonna play with these? Through videos. I will mention the videos later, right? Then we call let's understand. Let's understand means we are going to give you the whole information, the information that is required in order to explain what vertebrates and invertebrates are. As you can see by under the first image, there is a glossary. Glossary is not key vocabulary. Glossary are the words which can help you to understand the message that wants to be given in the text. And then we've got from time to time, and depending on the content, we got the pause section. As you can see, this box. In this box is a question that is to say to the whole class, with the purpose of I want to know if everyone understood what are vertebrates before getting into invertebrates. So it's a way to again create debate or to make sure that our students got the information. And then we got let's practice. Let's practice. What we got, as you can see, are different activities. In these activities, most of them are focused on listening and speaking. Some others on operational thinking skills. And there is a question number 3 that I will work on in a few minutes. Right? Let's come back, to let's get started. In let's get started, we wanted to include something that was very demanding from teachers. I still remember the number of hours that I spent, sometimes waste, looking for the proper video, right? We teach in a specific grade. We want, a specific level of language. So when the content fits, the language doesn't, or the opposite, or when I found a perfect video, I upload it, to my blog or to my website, and then it could disappear. So it's a nightmare to work with videos. So what we have created is a set of videos. You are going to have around 300 from natural science, 300 for social science. What I mean is that for every single little block of contents, as the ones that you can see here, you will have a video, right? Let me show you one. Excuse me. It is graded in terms of language. You will be able to see that, and it's graded in terms of content. You will have, the double page in front of you. You will be able to see how it follows the information. Of course, it's not reading what is in the book, but it's playing as a script, so it can be much more engaging for students. Take a look at it.
Animals with a backbone are called vertebrates. All vertebrates have an internal skeleton that is made up of many bones. Some vertebrates are viviparous, for example, human beings and monkeys. Other vertebrates, such as lizards and eagles, are oviparous. The body of a vertebrate is most commonly divided into head, body, and limbs. Nearly all vertebrates have limbs such as wings, feet, and fins. The spinal column, or backbone, is made up of many individual bones that are joined together. The internal skeleton supports the body and allows it to move and stay upright. It also protects the internal organs, such as the heart and the lungs. Animals that don't have a backbone are called invertebrates. They don't have an internal skeleton or bones. All invertebrates have one thing in common. They are oviparous.
Well, to be honest with you, this is one of the things that made my job exciting every single day, to have the opportunity to do things like that. I still remember, how difficult it is to find videos. And if we can provide, teachers with this resource, teachers will be, much more focused on how to teach, which is one of the quotations in our department, is to give teachers weekends back. If we are not able to do it, I think we have to improve. So it could be good to have, your feedback once you start using the material in order to know that we are in good shape, or it has to be done better. Let me recover, the mouse if it comes right. Next step. I said, I mentioned that in the let's practice section, which is, remember, let's get it started, let's understand, let's practice. There was a third question. There is always at the end, a question which has, like a mouse. And this mouse activity is the following one. I want to highlight that it's focused on mixed ability, but it can have dual focus, which means, you can use it for evaluation. What are we doing here? We are working through the James Cummings matrix, which means, I'm gonna start working with low linguistic levels and low cognitive levels. Language is gonna work a little bit up, cognitive level is gonna reach, and then we're gonna upgrade till high operational thinking skills and high linguistic levels, which is by the end the goal. How do we do it? By working first in different levels, the 5 levels that the European Commission has defined, and may then convert them, into an interactive activity. So how did we make it? The following way. Level up, the different levels are marked, as you can see, at the left upper, corner, and there are 5 stars. The first star is talking about reaching the linguistic level, right? So this is called visual identification. This is the first thing you're gonna do if you want to learn a language. So you're gonna have sounds and images. You're gonna be connecting them. And why it is done, it comes from the idea of the theory of, I'm not gonna say it, I'm gonna show you. Look at that. What about if I show you for the first time this word? Can all of you see it? Yep, right. If you see it for the first time, you will use your linguistic strategy from your mother tongue to say it in English. And do you know what? Most of our students will say biceps because they are using the mother tongue, the Spanish mother tongue. So the idea is that if we are very focused at the beginning on language, they will be able later on to introduce, the writing code. Otherwise, we will be committing errors. So first bicep, 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 biceps, and by the end, they will say biceps. So level number 1 is this. We are gonna be working on sounds and images. Once you master sounds with images and images with sounds, we can introduce for the first time the writing code, which is not gonna be more than a word. And in this case, it's not gonna be a word, it's gonna be an image, because the students will take a photo of it, right? They won't use their mother tongue linguistic strategy to read the word. Level number 2 is mingling all that, mixing all that. How? By you're gonna have words, you're gonna have sounds, and you're gonna have visual supports, images, right? The idea is to connect them, to make them much more complex. Once this level, this linguistic level has been achieved, we can jump into something much more cognitive, like for example, which is classifying information. As I mentioned, you've got like blocks of contents in every single project. So for every single of these little project blocks of contents, you're gonna classify information, because the idea is that by the end, you should be able to classify a big thing, which is gonna be the project, the whole term. So if I don't help you to do it little by little, you won't be able to reach, the goal by the end. So this is a cognitive level that we're working on. And as you can see, it's not complex at all. Once this is done, we give grammatical sense to the word. How? By including the words into definitions. This means I want students to start talking, to start defining, what they know. Because as you know, if you go to a foreign country and the words don't come to you, and you are not able to, for example, define what a battle is, at least you will, sorry, if you are not able to say the word battle, at least you will be able to define or explain what a battle is for. So this is the idea, to give them, let's say, tools enough to work with words. Once we have done this, we go to high operational thinking skills. How? By gradually going from, let's say, something easy to more complex questions. Nobody's going to ask kids here, about, for example, how many legs does a dog have? We are going to ask them, how many legs does a dog have compared to an ant? So students have to compare, contrast, and I mean, we are demanding much more in terms of cognition, in order to respond, to make an answer, right? Then is the moment in which, after set of groups of content, we stop. And these are the type of the section that is helping us not only to reconduct the idea of the big question. As you can see in the first part, there is a competential activity, and there is an I wonder question. In the I wonder question, as you can read, it says, are hamsters exotic pets? We call them, mild questions. It's like, I'm gonna take the big question and I'm gonna split it out in different, parts. So a student will be able to build about, the big question. And in the action, the students will start doing something towards, or being 100% focused on what is going to be, the by the end, the project. And as you can see, you've got the My Learning Notebook. This is the first time in which we were thinking about a different kind of workbook. Of course, there are going to be in the workbook activities that will reinforce, some of the content or consolidate some of the investigations. But also, we want, the workbook to be a way to collect learning evidences. So every single action that is done here is going to be pasted on the learning notebook. This is something that we also copy from infancy education. For example, in infancy education, I forgot to mention that students will receive the People's Book and a scrapbook. The scrapbook is a notebook totally, blank. I mean, there is no images, nothing inside. The idea is that we want them to use the pages to make any kind of activity that can be, like a learning evidence. Some of the learning evidences that can, help us to, not only for the teachers, but also to communicate to parents, to highlight, that there is a learning process, are in the book and are marked in the book in order to be pasted. Right. So these are, the sections that we call make a change. There is make a change 1, make a change 2, and make a change 3. And by the end, make the change that we will take a look in a few minutes. After, all this big amount of information and these little stops, is the moment to show a different way of classifying information. Why we can do things like that, like this visual summary? Because the students were isolated separately, let's say, classifying information per every single vertebrate group and per every single, invertebrate group. So now they are capable to connect all these different, mind maps and create a visual summary. Sometimes teachers, we are very focused on working on single ways of classifying information, but we must give the opportunity to kids to classify in different ways, right? So that's why we are showing here something much more engaging. And these are going to be the posters that you will have by the end. One side with the whole information, and at the back with filling, the gaps, right? Then you've got the review. My suggestion is that you shouldn't wait till the end, as it is a term, to start working with these type of activities. As you can see, most of the activities are very cognitive, are not asking something that is written exactly in that way in the pages, the previous pages of the book. So my suggestion is that once you teach, like a little block of content, come to the review, select the activities, and start working with them, right? That is when we go to make the change. And not only in make the change, but also in the making a change, all these activities are focused on working in teams. Nothing in history has been done by single people, by single person. Everything has been done in group. So what we are doing is improving cooperative working. So most of the activities are group individual or individual group. In order to start, like contrasting the information of my conclusions to my mates, so I can start being a little bit much more tolerant about respecting, what the others think about, right? In this case, we also work on the final action, which is, informing parents about what we think about adopting animals. And by the end, as you can see, there is again, a box that is calling us to go to the My Learning notebook, and we call 1 star and a wish. It's metacognition. We want students to let us know how they work, or to evaluate, the module, to evaluate everything that was done by themselves, by us, and by the whole term. So that is to improve, to make like a coaching session in which, we want the students to be aware of their weaknesses and strengths, and to make better things for the future, right? How do we do the connection between natural science and English? Through, as you can see, the table of contents. The table of contents, can guarantee, that all the contents are taught not only in the primary stage, but also in the 2 cycles that exist. Right? If you take a look at primary 3 and you go, for example, to the term number 2, we are talking, for example, about animals. If I change into English, Unit 3 says endangered animals. This is the type of connection that we have done, with the context. English is connected with natural science 100%, but with social science, when it was possible, it was done. When it wasn't possible, it wasn't done. So it's less connection with social science than the connection that exists with natural science. So if you take a look at, for example, primary 3, term 2, unit 4, it says places around me. I can do this connection with social science too, because in social science they are seeing, geography, natural science, habitats, and so we can link, we can make, like a unique learning context, only when it was possible, right? How do we make it? I show you, some pages of English and how it is linked, to natural science, and then I will go through the English book. So, for example, in the songs, there are songs per every single unit, and also in natural and social science. For those who want, there are also, karaoke versions in many ways. You can sing along, you can sing in groups, you can sing following, the different, the lyrics, or without lyrics, right? So in English, we are demanding kids to make, comparisons of animals. And in the grammar, we are making, comparisons. You can see a panda is bigger than a lizard, right? And in natural science, what are we doing? Asking them to compare what is the difference between a snake and a worm. This is a type of connection. So it's not only linguistically talking, but also cognitive talking. Everything is connected, linked. The idea is that the perception of the kid must be that there are no subjects. There is a learning context, right? And everything is done, as we mentioned, by taking a lot of care of the language progression, So starters will be working in first grade and second grade, movers third grade, flyers will be fourth grade, and as I mentioned, once we jump into fifth grade, will be cat, but the first term will be much more flyers than cat, and little by little they will get into the cat level, and exactly the same in sixth grade. So the idea is to give the possibility not only by the typology of activities, but also by the language that is demanded and the condition that is demanded to reach the goals of the final exams. And as you can see, this is a unit in English, right? It starts the same way, and it has again a big question. In this case, is are any animals safe from extinction? It's totally connected to the first big question that we had in natural science. That if you remember, it was is it fair to have exotic animals as pets? Totally connected. So everything is playing towards the same goal, right? Once we have achieved all that, what we got is a big demand in terms of listening. I mentioned before that it's important to work under the water in the big, iceberg before demanding output. So there is going to be input, 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 input. As you can see here, there are no concepts in the English book. The English book is for drilling linguistically the context, and also to provide the linguistic strategies to make students capable to explain what they learn in natural science. So you won't find in English any definition of what pollination is, or let's say, I don't know, the process of digestion. Not at all. This belongs, to the natural or to the social science books. Here, what we are doing is playing with the language, right? So as you can see, again, phonics is totally connected to the content. In this case, is what from whale, right? And it's connected to the content as well as to the different the different sets that we organize for the language. I want you to take a look at the second section, the second page, in which we got, in speaking, a ninja grammar. Why do we have a ninja grammar? We've got a ninja grammar because we don't want students to study the language, but using the language. For a long time, we were very focused on studying the language, and the results were very poor. Now we are focused on this, right? So let me show you, one of the resources that we provide you with in order to work with the ninja grammar. They are, again, videos. If you are able to remember, the blue book of Cambridge English called English Grammar Use, I guess most of you remember that. It has, like 120, sessions. We have taken the 96 ones that are taught, in primary education, and what we did is we create the following thing.
Wally's world of words. Words, I love them. A poem called Everything is More Interesting Than Nothing. Big Ben is bigger than Wally, and Wally is bigger than me, and all the oceans in the world are bigger than the Irish Sea. Rice is smaller than carrots, and carrots are smaller than trees, and Wally's hamster is smaller than me, even if I'm on my knees. Cars are more expensive than bicycles, and skateboards are better than bikes. But flying is more exciting, and that's why I like kites. Ice is cold in the water, but water is wetter than ice. So everything is something, and I think that's really nice. You can applaud now.
Okay, these are the type of videos that we are going to be include. But I mean, something to be mentioned is that no matter the grade you are teaching, you're going to have the whole set of videos. So if you're teaching in first grade, you're going to have all of them. If you are teaching in third grade, you've got all of them. And imagine, sometimes, some kids can ask you about new grammar structures that, I don't know, came out. Like, for example, I saw, in a song, a different structure. You're not gonna say to your kid, "Hey, wait till fifth grade because now is not the moment." You can click on the video and study this, with them. Or, for example, something that is very common is that students in sixth grade, before facing, the external exams, they forget the S in the third person. So the idea is that you will have the whole set of videos, so you can review also, all the language. The idea is that all these, not only the videos that you have seen in Ninja Grammar, but also the videos that we were talking before in Natural and Social Science, are videos that are available for kids. Anyone who wants to watch them can do it. So students, we can, again, as we did, in infancy education, what we are doing is extending education out of the classroom. Then is the moment to start introducing the writing code. And something to be mentioned that I forgot to say before is that, as well as we did in infancy education, in primary education, we also have off-book activities. If I go to natural science, I also have off-book activities. So the idea is that we know that sometimes you get to work with the book, but we know that sometimes you can go on, working with the book, because it demands a longer period of time to acquire, for example, the differences between vertebrates and invertebrates. So the type of activities that we are going to promote in the teacher's book are much more dynamic. We want students to stand up, to start doing something, to live experiences, because by the end, experiences is the way to build lifelong learning, right? So in this section, we will work on the writing code. We will be working on pre-story, during the reading and after the reading, right? After that, we introduce, again, using of English. As you can see, very similar to the way, Cambridge English exam does. The idea is that we are also getting the students familiarized with the different activities, but also, again, with the context that is taught not only in natural science, but in English. Reading and writing works the same way, and the amount of text has been selected depending on the Cambridge English level and the capacity of students to read, long text, right? Then we've got an important section. What from my point of view is very interesting, which is flipped classroom. Flipped classroom is much more than we can do, in a single section. But what we are doing here is that flipped classroom can help us to extend, again, education out of school, so students can get an assignment, can go home, can work on that, can come back, see the progression of it, and then improve whatever, or make a final job by the end, or by the end even presented in the classroom. But in the case, for example, of this page, what we are asking also are digital skills. Let me give you an example. Instead of asking you to go to a website and search for any specific information, and you copy and you paste, we're going to give you, for example, 3 websites. In these 3 websites, you get to choose which one is the right one, because the 3 of them are defining the same stuff in a different way. And not all of them are wrong, but there is one that is wrong. So it's like we cannot allow students to go to internet understanding that 100% what they can get from internet is true. So the idea is that developing the digital skills, we can get the most from them, and they can, be ready for real life. Then is the moment in which, we got the exam practice. And as you can see, this is not a complete exam practice. Everything, all these sections are, consolidated in the workbook, and it's a material that I really, highly recommend, because it's a way to consolidate everything that was, learned in the book, right? So what we have taken is exactly what our Cambridge English exam has, with the same typology of activities, and but contextualized. So what you are facing right here is movers level, right? And by the end, a review, and from my point of view, is one of the best, sections here in this book, is that we are not gonna only ask you to tell me what you know about a specific grammar structure that were taught during this unit. Of course, we're gonna do it, but we, as learning a language is accumulative, we are gonna ask you to tell us, to use different, grammar structures that were previously taught. And not only that, but also, apply it into a context. So as you can see, there are much more cognitive activities. Then we've got other activities, as you can see in the right side, and something to be highlighted is the board game. There is going to be a board game not only for EPS, for English, but also, for natural and social science. It's an interactive activity. If you want to do it, with the board, it will come with posters. But if you want to go and do it, interactively talking, you've got the board game is online, so you will be able to roll the dice and move along, the different, boxes, and you will have different questions. So you are, let's say, reviewing, the content, not only linguistically talking, but the ones also from natural social science, and having fun at the same time. And as I mentioned, before, coach yourself. So it's connected. English and natural or social science are totally connected. This is what is available right now onward. If you don't have any connection to this, please ask your reps to send you this. We've got a sample per every single book, and these are the materials that you will have, by the end. You will have like a selection of extra resources for you as teacher to introduce, to play with, web links, things that can help you. Then the audios, which is something that we cannot give students, otherwise the listening activities would have any sense in the classroom. And then for the students, we will have, all the web links in order to promote, the free classroom activities, all the videos, and some activities. These activities that they say let's use are the challenges that we already mentioned, the ones that are focused on mixed ability as well as evaluation. Evaluation is something that is done, by self-evaluation interactive activity, the assessment per every single spread that you've got, which is going to come, in a Word document, so you can modify it as you want to. And by the end, the information that you will be able to collect by a progress chart through the challenges. Only if you make groups, you will have, a proper report, right? So this is everything that we are showing this year for you. We started, with pre-primary infant education, working with natural and social science, as well as music and art, and the English. For us, the integration of English and content subjects is a key of success in bilingual education. And believe us, with the different, schools that we are working on and researching, the benefits are huge. And well, I would like to, first of all, thank you for being there, to pay attention to everything I said. And now is the moment in which I'm going to start, like a big gap for questions. Tell me if there is any question, and I will be grateful to answer it, okay? Let me open it up. Any question about it? Some of the questions that I will have, and it's how, for example, the teacher's book is done. I forgot to include it, and I'm pretty sorry now. I realize right now. The teacher's book is made with explanations of the spread, an explanation of an off-book activity, and something to be highlighted is that at the bottom of every single of the, imagine that you're in natural science, teacher's book, you will have a box in which I explain to you what is going on in English, as well as what is going on in social science. So if you are not the same teacher of all the English subjects, you don't need coordination, because what we are doing is promoting this coordination. I think this is something important to be mentioned. And it is because, every single school context is different. Another thing that I really would like to say is that also resources that are available are huge. For example, in infancy education, as we want to promote the routine, there will be lots of material, for the routine, like a routine board with a wheel in order to promote, discussion and the context of the whole, group of classroom. Also, the mascot, posters, flashcards, word cards, phonic cards, phoneme cards. Oh, thousands of materials. And in natural and social science, we're going to be focused on these posters, the ones that we showed you, as well as, the interactive ones, right? Flashcards and word cards will come with natural and social science. And for EPS in primary education, it will also come, as I mentioned before, with phonic cards and phoneme cards. So if there is no other question, I'm very thankful for having you there. I understand, that being a teacher after class to attend to a webinar like that can be, like hard. I hope you like it. And we are, 100% connected to you, and everything you would like to tell us, will be nice, right? So thanks a lot, and see you in the next webinar. Cheers.